This story is titled, At Sunday Dinner, My Wife Joked I Was Practically Unemployable right in front of everyone. I smiled and said, Funny, I just accepted a job offer in another country. Alone. Now she's screaming that I abandoned her and the mortgage. You know how every family has that one person who's like the butt of all the jokes? The designated punching bag. The "oh, relax, it's just teasing" guy? Yeah, that's me. Or at least, it was me. Until last Sunday night, when I finally grew a spine, and maybe nuked my entire life in the process. So here's the setup. I'm Jake, 39M, factory rat turned corporate dropout, turned whatever the hell I'm now. My wife Ruth, 37F, she's got this talent for smiling sweet while twisting a knife between your ribs. We've been married 12 years, have a mortgage that feels like a third kid we never asked for, and 2 actual kids who think TikTok trends are a personality. Sunday dinners at our house are sacred. Like church, if church was boring, passive-aggressive, and smelled like overcooked meatloaf. Anyway, Ruth's thing lately is playfully roasting me in front of family. Her mom, her sisters, her work friends, the mailman, whoever happens to be breathing oxygen nearby. I usually smile and swallow it because, that's marriage, right? You eat crap with a polite face and pray they'll love you for it. But this Sunday was special. We had the whole zoo assembled. Ruth's sisters, her loudmouth brother-in-law who thinks he's the second coming of George Carlin, and her mom, who looks at me like I'm a piece of IKEA furniture she regrets assembling. My kids were there too, both pretending not to know me, which, honestly, fair. Dinner was the usual passive-aggressive potluck. Ruth made her famous lasagna, Reed, Costco frozen. Her sister Lisa brought homemade cookies still warm in the Safeway packaging, and I contributed by breathing and keeping my mouth shut. Then it happened. We're mid-bite. Everyone's laughing about some dumb work story when Ruth, without even looking up from her plate, says, if Jake ever lost his job, we'd be screwed. He's practically unemployable. Like it was the weather report. Like she was commenting on the price of avocados. Everybody laughed. God, they laughed. Even the kids chuckled. Oscar, my 15-year-old, smirked behind his water glass like he just witnessed a car crash in real time. Ruth's mom actually wheezed. Me? I smiled. I smiled like a goddamn idiot while my insides shriveled up and died. But what they didn't know, what nobody at that pristine little table knew, was that I'd gotten a call 3 days ago. A job offer. A real one. 6 figures, international relocation, a chance to actually matter somewhere for once. And the best part? It wasn't our opportunity. It was mine. Singular. No +1. No kids. No pity invites. Just me and a one-way ticket out of this beige hell. So I put down my fork, wiped my mouth neatly with the cloth napkin Ruth's mom gave us as a wedding gift. She made a big deal about how expensive they were. She brings it up every Thanksgiving. And said, real calm, funny you should say that. I just accepted a job offer. In another country. I let it hang there. Let it soak into their thick skulls like bourbon into a cheap carpet. Alone, I added, just to really twist the knife. The look on Ruth's face? Oh, buddy, if I could bottle it and sell it, I'd retire tomorrow. Pure, unfiltered panic, seasoned with a generous sprinkle of, oh no, the free ride might actually be ending. Of course, the table went dead silent. You could hear the lasagna congealing. Ruth's mom clutched her pearls, literally, because of course she owns pearls, and her sister Lisa gasped so hard I thought she might suck the tablecloth into her lungs. Meanwhile, I sat there smiling, feeling lighter than I had in years. Like I just peeled off a second, sweat-soaked skin I didn't realize I'd been dragging around. The rest of the night? A blur of Ruth hissing under her breath, trying to talk privately, her sisters pretending not to look smug, and me savoring every awkward second. I slept in the guest room that night. Not because Ruth told me to. Because I wanted to. Because for the first time in forever, I wasn't the sad little rescue dog wagging my tail for scraps. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, I leave. I woke up the next morning half expecting to feel regret. That pit in your stomach, what the hell have I done kind of feeling. Instead, nothing. Just peace. Like I'd been holding my breath for 12 years and finally exhaled. The house was dead silent, except for Ruth's soft sniffling coming from the master bedroom. I didn't bother checking. I already knew what I'd find. Her curled up in bed, mascara smudged, phone clutched like a lifeline, firing off SOS texts to her sisters, her mom, maybe even the neighbor's cat if it had a cell phone. I brewed myself a coffee, real slow. Took my time with it. The smell filled the kitchen, familiar and foreign at the same time, like it finally belonged to me and not the constant buzzing anxiety that usually lived here. Halfway through my first cup, Ruth stormed downstairs. No makeup, hair a mess, wearing my old college sweatshirt, the one she always said made me look like a man-child, but somehow now is clinging to like it might save her. She started in immediately. No, good morning. No, can we talk? Just full sirens blaring hysteria. How could you abandon me? She shrieked, like I'd thrown her into a volcano instead of announcing my intent to relocate 2,000 miles away. We have a mortgage. We have responsibilities. You can't just leave. I just sipped my coffee. Because see, when you've already spent a decade being treated like a background character in your own life, watching someone realize they might not be the main character after all is oddly satisfying. I stood by you when you were struggling, she said, voice cracking, trying to conjure up some fantasy version of history where she hadn't spent years tap dancing on my self-esteem like it was her own personal trampoline. You stood by me like a heckler stands by a stand-up comic, I said, real quiet, cheering every time I bombed. That shut her up for about 3 seconds. Then came the bargaining. Oh, the sweet, desperate bargaining. We can fix this, she pleaded, voice trembling. We can see a counselor. We can start over. And maybe 5 years ago, hell, even last year, I would have caved. Would have told myself that good men don't walk away. That family comes first. That love is hard work. And maybe if I just tried harder, said the right thing, gave the right apology for offenses I never committed, I could still be enough. But the thing about breaking points is, once you snap, you can't unsnap. The crack is permanent. I'm not interested in fixing something you never valued until it broke, I said. Calm, not cruel, just final. Ruth's face twisted. Hurt, betrayal, something else underneath it, something uglier. Fear, maybe. Not fear of losing me, but fear of losing the free ride. The stability. The man she could count on to clean up her messes with a smile. You're not the only one hurting, she spat, finally showing the version of herself I'd lived with for years behind closed doors. You think you're some kind of hero? You're a coward, running away because you can't handle being needed. I almost laughed then, not because it was funny, but because of how backwards it all was. Like a drowning man screaming at the rescue boat for pulling away too slow. Instead, I just stood up, set my empty coffee cup in the sink, and told her what I should have said a decade ago. I'm done being needed by people who don't even see me. I walked past her, up the stairs, and started packing. Not frantically, not angrily. Methodically. Shirts, jeans, boots, the essentials. Left the worn-out suits, the broken dreams, the sad little life they thought I'd keep fighting for. Behind me, Ruth was still crying. Or maybe screaming. Hard to tell. I tuned it out the way you tune out background static. My flight leaves in 3 days. By the time she figures out I wasn't bluffing, I'll be halfway across the ocean, sipping a beer under a different sky, in a place where nobody laughs when they say my name. By the next morning, the entire cavalry had been summoned. My phone was a war zone. 37 missed calls, 12 voicemails, and a barrage of texts that swung wildly between please, Jake, we love you, and you're destroying this family, you selfish bastard. Ruth wasn't coming alone. She brought backup. Her mother left a voicemail so sure it could have shattered bulletproof glass. Something about abandoning my sacred duties as a husband and betraying the vows I made before God. Which was rich, considering this woman spent our entire marriage looking at me like I was a mildew stain on her daughter's perfect life plan. Then came Lisa, Ruth's sister, texting me a meme of a trash can on fire with the caption, "Guess who's blowing up their whole life over a midlife crisis?" Classy. Oscar, my son, even texted, "Mom's crying. Are you really leaving?" That one hit different. I sat there staring at it for a full minute, the ache in my chest blooming fresh and raw. But then I thought about all the times I asked Oscar to go fishing with me, only for Ruth to roll her eyes and say, "Don't pressure him. He has better things to do." Thought about the nights I got home late from a double shift, only to find them curled up without me, laughing at some dumb show I wasn't invited to join. Love isn't just about blood. It's about showing up. And I was the only one who had been showing up for a long, long time. So I texted back. I'll always love you. I'll always be here if you want me. But I'm not staying somewhere I'm not wanted. No answer. Just silence. Meanwhile, Ruth had shifted tactics. By lunchtime, she posted a photo of us, our wedding photo, no less, on Facebook, captioned, "Sometimes the ones you love most hurt you the deepest. Pray for our family during this difficult time." The comments came flooding in. People I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly mourning the death of a marriage they knew nothing about. Her friends, her family, all rallying behind her. Because Ruth, God bless her, knew how to play the victim like it was a damn Olympic sport. And me? I didn't comment. Didn't even like the post. I just watched the little red notifications stack up like funeral flowers at a wake nobody invited me to. I wasn't angry. Not really. It was almost fascinating, like watching a well-rehearsed play you'd seen too many times to even pretend to enjoy. She wasn't trying to fix things. She was trying to win. But the thing about games is, they only work if the other player still cares about the prize. And me? I was already gone. Physically, yeah, I was still in the house, packing my essentials, tying up loose ends. But mentally? Emotionally? I was on that plane already, watching the sunset over a new life Ruth didn't even exist in. That night, she tried one last time. Cornered me in the kitchen, mascara streaked, wearing that same old college sweatshirt like it was armor. She didn't yell this time. No insults, no accusations. Just a small, broken voice. Please, Jake. Don't leave. Don't leave me here to deal with all of this alone. And for a split second, just a flicker, I felt it. That old instinct. The one that made me stay too long, give too much, hope too hard. But then I looked around. At the kitchen I'd paid for, but was never thanked for. At the walls hung with photos of Ruth's family vacations that never included me. At the sink full of dishes I'd washed 1,000 times while they laughed in the next room. And I remembered. I wasn't abandoning her. I was saving myself. I pulled my keys from the hook by the door, slung my bag over my shoulder, and said the last words I would ever say to Ruth inside that house. You already left me a long time ago. I'm just catching up. I didn't slam the door. I closed it carefully, quietly, like I was tucking in a body after a long illness. By the time it clicked shut, I was free. You always think the worst part is leaving. It's not. The worst part is what happens after, when the person you left behind realizes they're losing, and they start swinging wild, ugly, desperate. I made it 2 days. 2 full days of peace. No Ruth. No crying. No door slamming. No phone blowing up every 5 minutes. Then came the text. From Emily, my daughter. Dad, why are you abandoning us? Mom says you don't care about the family anymore. I stared at the screen, the words burning like acid. My hands actually shook. Not because I regretted leaving Ruth, that ship was already burning at the bottom of the ocean, but because dragging the kids into this? That was nuclear. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. How do you answer a question that isn't really a question? It's a trap. A stage Ruth built, with my kids as the props. 5 minutes later, Oscar texted too. If you don't come back, Mom says we might lose the house. It'll be your fault. Guilt, weaponized and fired at point-blank range. God, Ruth was good at this. She didn't care about the marriage. She cared about the optics, the narrative. And in her story, the villain always had to be me. Not the woman who laughed at her husband's dreams. Not the wife who humiliated the man putting food on the table. No, just me. The deserter. The disappointment. The bad guy. I sat on the hotel bed, staring at the beige curtains, feeling something inside me rip a little more. I missed my kids. Of course I did. But I wasn't coming back. Not for Ruth. Not for her stage plays. So I called Emily. Hands shaking. Heart in my throat. Felt like walking into a goddamn ambush. She answered after 2 rings, voice tight and defensive. Dad, she said. Why are you doing this to us? Sharp words. Like little knives. Not even hers. I could hear it. They had Ruth's fingerprints all over them. I swallowed the lump in my throat and said the hardest thing I've ever said. I'm not doing anything to you, Em. I'm doing something for me. A pause. Static in the line. You're just giving up? She asked, voice cracking. No, sweetheart, I said, staring out the window at a sky that suddenly felt 1,000,000 miles away. I gave everything for years. I'm just finally keeping something for myself. She didn't answer. Just hung up. I sat there for a long time after that. Phone still pressed against my ear like maybe if I waited long enough, I could take it all back. Rewind the tape. Be the guy who smiled through it all again, just to keep the family pictures from cracking. But there's no rewind button for betrayal. Only forward. Only through. That night, Ruth posted again. A picture of the kids sitting on the couch looking miserable, captioned. Trying to stay strong without him. 37 comments. 57 likes. More sad face emojis than I could count. Ruth was painting the world in broad strokes. Deadbeat dad. Abandoned wife. Poor, innocent kids. And me? I was done explaining myself to people who were never going to listen. So I turned off my phone, packed my second bag, booked my flight a day early. Because if you let them, they'll keep slicing you open 1,000 tiny ways and call it love. If you let them, they'll guilt you back into the cage and lock it with a smile. I wasn't letting them. Not anymore. I left before the sun came up, slipping away into a morning so quiet it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. As the plane lifted off, I looked out the window and thought about Oscar and Emily, not the way Ruth wanted me to, but the way I chose to. Not as shackles, not as weapons. As kids. Kids who would someday understand that love isn't staying somewhere you're dying just to prove a point. Love is knowing when to walk away, even if it kills you. And maybe, just maybe, one day they'd thank me for it. A week. That's how long I lasted. A week of pretending I was okay. A week of cheap coffee, muted hotel TV, empty sunsets that should have felt like freedom but tasted like dust in my mouth. You can leave the house. You can leave the marriage. But guilt? Guilt packs itself neatly in your carry-on and slides right under the seat in front of you. Every night I laid awake, staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering if I'd made a mistake. Wondering if I was the villain Ruth painted me as. Wondering if I should have just swallowed it all a little longer. For the kids. For the illusion. By the seventh night, I was a mess. Hadn't eaten more than gas station sandwiches and room service fries in days. My hands shook when I tried to text Emily. I kept drafting messages and deleting them, afraid to say the wrong thing, afraid it was already too late. Then, the photo. It popped up in a family group text Ruth forgot to remove me from. Probably a slip. Maybe a final little jab, hoping I'd see what I was missing and come crawling back. It was supposed to be family fun night. Pizza, movies, board games, the whole sitcom fantasy. But the second I saw it, my stomach dropped. Emily was sitting on the floor, hunched over, dark circles under her eyes so deep they looked bruised. Her sweatshirt hung off her shoulders like she was a kid playing dress-up in adult clothes. Except she wasn't playing. She was drowning. Oscar, my tough, cocky little man, was barely recognizable. He had lost weight, real weight, not just teenager grew a few inches weight. His arms looked too thin. His smile didn't even touch his eyes. It was a grimace, a hostage smile. In the background, 2 empty pizza boxes, still sealed. A half-full bottle of wine sitting next to Ruth's elbow. And not a single adult in that room looking at the kids. The rage hit me so hard I actually gasped. Like getting punched in the gut by a ghost. My vision tunneled. My heart kicked into overdrive. This was the price of my absence. I wasn't saving myself anymore. I was coming back for them. I moved like a machine. Booked the first flight home without even checking the price. Threw everything into my duffel bag, laptop, clothes, rage so thick it felt like it was leaking out of my pores. At the airport, I barely remember going through security. On the plane, I sat there gripping the armrest, eyes bloodshot, teeth grinding, imagining every worst-case scenario over and over. I had given Ruth the benefit of the doubt for too long. Had given her the kids, the house, my goddamn soul, assuming she'd at least hold it together for them. I should have known better. I should have known a drowning person will pull down everyone around them just to keep their own head above water. And I was done letting her drown my kids. When I landed, I didn't go to my hotel. I didn't call Ruth. I didn't announce anything. I went straight to the house. Parked a block away. Walked up in the dark like a ghost. Through the window, I could see them. Oscar curled up on the couch, hoodie pulled over his head like he was trying to disappear. Emily sitting cross-legged on the floor, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. No Ruth in sight. Probably out with her sisters. Probably coping. I knocked once. Sharp. Loud. Emily's head snapped up. She ran to the door so fast it made my heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. Oscar stumbled up after her, eyes wide, scared and hopeful all at once. I opened my arms. No words. No speeches. Just open arms. And they ran to me. Held on like they were afraid I'd disappear again. I knelt down, one kid in each arm, feeling their ribs, feeling their smallness, feeling my own shame clawing up my throat, but burying it. Because now wasn't the time to be sorry. It was the time to fix it. Oscar mumbled into my shoulder, voice shaking. "Don't leave again, Dad. Please." "I won't," I whispered. Not a promise. A vow. Behind me, a car door slammed. Ruth. Back from wherever the hell she'd been. She saw us, me, kneeling there, arms wrapped around the 2 people who still gave a damn. Her face went red, then white, then red again. A storm gathering. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she shrieked, stumbling up the walkway. I stood up slowly, turned to face her, looked her dead in the eye, and for the first time in years, felt absolutely nothing but cold, perfect clarity. "I'm taking my kids home," I said. "They are home." She screamed, hair wild, mascara smeared like war paint. "No," I said, voice steady as steel. "Home isn't where you starve. Home isn't where you get ignored until you disappear." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. Just rage. Powerless, useless rage. I turned my back to her because she didn't matter anymore and walked my kids to the car. Didn't rush. Didn't shout. Just drove away. 3 silhouettes in the night. a man finally waking up, 2 kids finally safe. And Ruth standing there on the porch, screaming into the darkness as we disappeared down the street. 2 weeks later, Ruth showed up at the rental house. I saw her through the front window, standing there like some ghost from a life I'd already buried. Messy hair, pajamas under a jacket. Tears streaked down her face, mascara tracing every bad decision she ever made. She was holding something, a photo album. Our wedding album, maybe. A souvenir from the war she lost. I didn't answer the door. Didn't even flinch. Instead, I sat on the couch with Emily and Oscar, watching some stupid baking competition where people built cakes shaped like dragons. Emily was curled up against my side, giggling at some guy's frosting disaster. Oscar had a bowl of popcorn bigger than his head. His laughter, real, loud, unguarded, filled the room. The knock came again. Harder. Then a shout. Jake, you can't do this. You can't just erase me. Erase her? Lady, you wrote yourself out a long time ago. I just finally turned the page. I muted the TV, not because I was scared, because I wanted my kids to hear this. Wanted them to know that silence was a choice, our choice. Come on, Jake, Ruth cried, voice cracking. Think about the good times. I did think about them, and they slid through my mind like water through a sieve. Slippery, hollow, gone. You're being so dramatic, she screamed. You're ruining everything. I almost laughed. Ruining everything? Nah. She did that herself, slowly, meticulously, with every eye roll, every cruel joke. Every time she chose the audience over the man who built her a goddamn life with his bare hands. The kids didn't move toward the door. Didn't even glance at it. Oscar grabbed another handful of popcorn. Emily leaned her head on my shoulder. It was over. And they knew it too. Outside, Ruth's voice cracked into sobs. I caught bits and pieces between the wailing, "You're selfish. You're evil. You'll regret this." But here's the thing about regret. It only sticks when you lose something you actually valued. I stood up, finally, and pulled the curtains closed. That was it. That was the funeral. No flowers. No eulogies. Just a curtain drawn across a life that didn't deserve an encore. Later that night, while the kids were asleep, I sat on the porch with a beer, listening to the quiet. And it hit me. This silence? It wasn't empty. It was full. Full of possibility. Full of peace. Full of the kind of love you don't have to beg for, or buy, or earn like some sad door-to-door salesman. It was ours. Oscar and Emily started school the next week. A new place, a new start. Oscar made the soccer team. Emily joined art club. They laughed more now. Ate real meals. Slept through the night without waking up from nightmares they didn't know they'd been having. Sometimes they still asked about Ruth. And when they did, I didn't lie. I didn't badmouth her, either. I just told the truth. She made her choices. Now we're making ours. And the best part? They didn't ask to go back. Not once. Not even when the newness wore off. Not even when the days got hard. Not even when the memories crept in around the edges. Because they knew, just like I did, that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself, for the people you love, is walk away from the fire while you still can. Let the ones who started it sit in the ashes. Let them cry. Let them rage. Let them tell whatever stories they need to tell to survive the wreckage they built. We're not going back. We're too busy living.